Okay, this is mini lecture 10, the last of the mini lectures for module 1. In this lecture, fairly brief lecture, we're going to be talking about the idea of core and periphery, or if you will, the central economic area and the hinterland. Those are sometimes the terms you will see used in the text. So what we're really talking about here is that when geographers look at space, especially space in terms of economics and economic activity, we often examine where the core of economic exchange is happening in contrast to areas of manufacturing or extraction. And so if we look at that, that's one way of understanding space. The other aspect of this, though, is that when we think of global economic activity, we can also think of core areas of exchange, trade, economic development, and capital, and then areas of resource extraction and less economic development. This is actually one of the bigger problems with this model, is that it tends to suggest that there are areas that are dominant economically, and then there are areas that are dependent. And this very idea has been challenged, but has also been suggested as perhaps the reason that countries stay perpetually underdeveloped is that the core countries, in fact, want that disparity to persist. So a couple of characteristics to remember. Cores are centers of business and economic exchange. Cities, for example, or countries that are tertiary economies, that is, economies focused on service, research, and development. And so if we look at that, we can see it two different ways. First of all, we can think about the world in terms of how the textbook defines it, in terms of areas that are core and areas that are periphery or semi-periphery. So if we look at this, for example, Canada, the United States, and to a large degree Mexico, because of NAFTA, becomes a core area, Western Europe and the European Union, and the East Asian core area. These are areas of trade and economic activity that to a large degree extract raw materials, inexpensive labor, and markets from the rest of the world, the periphery, if you will. The other way, though, that we can see this is in terms of interconnectedness and the exchange of ideas. If we look at the global connectivity, that is internet connectivity, what we see very clearly is that the cores that we've already discussed are very clear in this area, with secondary core areas in South America associated primarily with Brazil, and then the slow emergence of the Indian subcontinent as a secondary or semi-periphery. That's an important idea that we now are beginning to see, at least globally, core areas, North America, Europe, East Asia, and then semi-periphery, South America, South Asia, and then true periphery that we see in Central Asia, parts of Latin America, and the African continent. Now, we can also see this to a large degree in the United States. If you think about it, what we have here now, again, it is not that higher education is intrinsically part of the core, but service sector and exchange employment largely rely on higher education. And what you'll notice is that our high population density cities, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, emerging, of course, you can see Atlanta as well in that. It would be a great example, as would be Houston. We see that these are highly educated populations and populations where a large number of people there are employed in service and in white-collar positions. Now, let's flip it around. When we look at agriculture, again, an extractive hinterland aspect, what we see in the United States is that the core areas, pardon the use of the word there, but the areas focusing on resource extraction and in agriculture, low population densities, lower wages, in general, are focused in this agricultural belt, and that would truly be the hinterland in the United States. So again, this idea of core, periphery, or city center and hinterland is this aspect of two areas interacting one largely extracting from the other, but in the same respect dependent on the other for resources and for agricultural productivity. Okay, that's it for Module 1. Please make sure that you have gone through the reading and through these videos before taking the Module 1 quiz. Also, make sure you introduce yourself on the discussion board. That's it.